All right, there you go. There I go. Welcome, welcome, welcome once again, everybody. Today is April the 11th, Tiff Talk Sunday. I'm so happy to have had the opportunity to be with you guys on this afternoon. As you are coming in, make sure that you are dropping your name, the city that you're from, and shout us out so we can shout you out so that we too may be able to share in the dialogue and conversation with you guys. This is an open platform, so we want to make sure that we're on the same page and we have a good conversation going. I'm going to give it a minute or two just to allow us time to build our audience, and from there we'll go ahead and get started. And remember, Facebookers, as you guys are coming in, unfortunately, Facebook does not allow me the opportunity to see you. I only see the number of people that are coming in on the live stream. So if you do not say who you are, if you do not shout out, then we cannot shout you out. So let's allow it to be an even exchange. You shout us out so we can shout you out. And remember, Facebookers, as you guys are coming in. All right. So I'm going to leave it up to our leadership team to manage the Facebook, and they'll let me know when you guys are coming in, and we will go ahead and get started just to make sure that we are respectful for each other's time. So as I mentioned, today is April the 11th, 2021, and I am so excited to be able to join you guys this afternoon and to share in this discussion. We initially kicked off our blooming season during our last talk time when we bloomed in manifestation with our talk guest, Miss Jock. And today we are going to be blooming in wealth with financial coach Nikki Williams. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that are new to this platform, I am Tiffany. I am a social worker by trade and a community activist at heart. I have worked in the social services industry for a very, very long time. So much so that I do not want to tell my age. So I'll just say it's been well over a decade. And in that, I found myself in a position that I really had so much more to give and so much more that I wanted to be able to give. And in that, this platform, Tiff Talks, was created an open dialogue conversation for us as a community, Tiff Talks community, to discuss taboo topics that we are discussing in the beauty shop, in the barbershop, already in our office place, and to really just bring more insight, awareness, and also education to these taboos. So that is how I got my start in this platform. And over time, we've discussed major taboos as far as minority mental health. We've also discussed breaking generational curse. And as we transition into this blooming season, we're going to be discussing all things in a matter of blooming. And in honor of Financial Literacy Month, we're going to be talking about wealth. We're talking about building wealth, advancing in our wealth, establishing wealth, and that kicks off today with our second quarter of this blooming season. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that our talk guest will share her screen and unmute her mic so that we can go ahead and get started.
All right, Tiff.
So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, I know I gave a little brief snippet of it, but go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, well, once again, Tiffany, as always, it's such a pleasure to be here at Tiff Talks. Absolutely love what you guys are doing here, bringing that awareness to the community, whether it be mental health or financial wealth. So I'm super excited. So, like Tiff says, I'm licensed financial coach, Nikki Williams. I am the co-CEO of O Enterprises, Inc., also a regional vice president at PFS. I got into this business kind of by accident, so to speak, meaning that I was a referral on somebody's list, and I was contacted by my awesome vice president as well in this business. But when I got there and sat down with her and understood what they were truly doing in the community to bring financial awareness, because that's what it's about. We have to continue to educate the community. So I got my start almost, gosh, probably about 5.5 years ago, into this amazing business. Got my license, started to build an agency. So right now, I mentor and train and develop probably about 40 agents in my firm right now. But I'm a Mississippi native. Grew up, for me, I grew up extremely poor, and I'm not ashamed of that, because I tell people it's not about where you start, it's about how you finish, right? So I'm very transparent when it comes to that. I tell people my story all the time. I said, man, I grew up in a house where it was colder inside than it was outside. But that doesn't stop you from, really, getting to where living out your dreams. So I grew up there and I went to college. And so I hold a business degree in marketing, actually, from the University of Mississippi. I'm former college athlete, so I'm super competitive. And I just, never, took what was shown to me as, put limits stuff, right? So that's how, what I've been doing, really all my life, but now I'm licensed to do it. So I just, bring that same passion and energy, to families across, this country right now. People, just like I say, where you start is not where you're going to finish it, but there are some things that you have to do,
Right.
ensure that you do finish this thing called life strong.
That's
So
right.
that's just a little bit about me.
All right. I love that. Awesome introduction. Awesome introduction. And I agree. For me, where I start is definitely not where I intend to finish. And in running this race that we call life, there are things that we have to do, things that we have to
Mm-hmm.
manage, things that we have to be intentional about in order to move forward and to get the best out of life. And for me, I think the most important thing when it comes to this topic is being able to provide the information, being able to give and bring awareness to this topic. Because, in all honesty, for me, growing up in a household, finances, wealth was not something that my family talked about. It wasn't anything that was hidden, but it wasn't something that we talked about at dinner. And as a result of that, it took me some time even as an adult to truly understand financial literacy, to understand financial education. And you and I were kind of talking offline where that word financial education and literacy is just thrown around so often. It's at a point where most people don't even truly understand that there is a difference.
Right.
And being that there is a difference, I wanted to make sure that we initiated the discussion with that. For 2020, and I said multiple times, I'm sure I've said it multiple times before, and I'll say it multiple times again. If it did not bring the hustle out of you, nothing will. I found myself being able to sustain because I work in the healthcare industry and I was essential and had to be there. But for some people, they didn't have that same advantage. So it forced us to be in a position where we had to understand how to better manage our funds and to live on the fragments, to work with what we have. And because of that, I think it's important that we discuss what it means to understand financial education versus financial literacy. So can we start by making sure that our audience today understands the difference between those two?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said before, that's the term, especially in the era that we're in now, is tossed around a lot because people are more aware, right? There's a lot more access to information than ever before, right? So I tell people there's no reason for people not to know anything in this day and time, right? But when you talk about, financial education, Tiff, you're talking more about the ability to understand how financial resources work. Okay, that's what education. Like whenever you go to school, right? You may be a nurse, you may be studying to be a teacher. You're learning basically just kind of some of the ways that things operate, right? But when about the financial literacy, that's a little bit different, right? So now we're talking about focuses on the ability how to manage, right, your personal finances effectively, right? So which requires experience, such as making appropriate, what we call appropriate decisions, right? Such as your savings, your insurances, credit and things like that. And one of the things I like in that too, I was telling a friend when we were talking about, this very subject, for is, when we remember when you first started to learn how to drive, right? Most of us went through what driver's education, right? So we were learning and trying to understand, the purpose of, all the rules, the post signs and all things like that, right? When we're going through driver's ed. However, now when we got the license, that right there, which really gave us the ability to actually go ahead and put these things in action.
Right.
Okay. So that's how I liken, the difference between, financial education and financial literacy. You can have all the education in the world, but right. In the knowledge, but it's what applied knowledge is what's going to make the difference. So, when you talk about that, that's what I believe, truly the difference is. One is just to understand, and the other one is how you apply it. Right. Put it in simple terms.
And I completely agree with that. I think any one person can grasp an understanding of something. Mm-hmm. Right. And that is what education is, to grasp mm-hmm. the understanding. But when it comes down to literacy, is more so about the competency that goes along with that, and mm-hmm. also the skill set that you obtain from that education. I can teach my baby how to ride a bike. Right. But my baby won't truly know how to ride a bike until I let go and my hands are no longer, guiding that baby to ride that bike. So I feel the literacy part is being able to take your hands off and truly understand how to manage and how to steer, this thing. Yeah. For me, I'm a one that believes to know better is to do better. Absolutely. And honestly, and you kind of touched on this, for me, I feel our culture is very much so lagging behind when it comes to financial literacy. Mm-hmm. Because yes, we know how to open a bank account. We know how to pay bills. Mm-hmm. We know, the simple things of what has now been the Cash App and being able to invest doing Cash App and things and stuff like that. But do you understand what your net worth and your network is? Do you understand how to manage your income? Do you understand how to build and to foster and to capitalize on your income? Those are some things that not everybody knows. That's and right. For me, it's important that when we grasp this literacy part, that we're getting to a point where we're doing better with what we know. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't want to play the devil's advocate, but I tend to always do that. So I want to get your insight on how you feel that having access to financial education has limited us or has hindered us, and what we truly can do now with being able to have access to financial literacy and being exposed to that literacy.
Yeah, so I think overall it has the lack of access to financial education has truly had a significant impact. Even it is now we're in 2021, where people, like I said before, have access to things, but because wealth is generational. Okay, it's something that's built on from generation to generation. And you hit on something earlier when you said, hey, when we were sitting at our dinner tables, we weren't having those conversations, right? So overall, it has definitely impacted our community. One of the things that definitely me and my team, we're definitely advocates for is creating generational wealth. Yeah. And if we go off of statistics, and I'm kind of one that no matter what statistics says, I think we can change the course. But, but if we look at the statistics, I think, don't quote me on this, but really in about 2 to 3 years, that African American will own less wealth than we did in 1980.
Wow. Wow.
Now, I mean, let that sink in for a minute. In
Hmm.
about 2 to 3 years, we
Less
will
wealth.
have, I'm telling you, we will own less wealth than we did in 1980. And in 1980, we weren't on Google.
Yeah.
We weren't doing any of that, right?
Right.
And by 20, there's an article out there, guys, if you ever get a chance, it's called Zero Wealth, right? The Road to Zero Wealth. By 2053, it projects that our net worth will be $0
Wow.
in 2053. I mean, you're talking about 30 years from now. So we have a lot of work to do, and the reason a lot of that is stem from, like you said before, our lack of access to it. Okay. Meaning that, I ask my clients some days, I said, when the last time somebody stopped by your house and said, hey, let me teach you how to build generational wealth? And people truly, sit and like, be trying to think about that. And I said, let me help you out. Nobody's never, nobody, you're concerned, it's always fun, right? And I'm looking like, they be like, I'm gonna help you out. Nobody, right? So it has definitely, I think, hinder us, has played a part. But I think that, in this decade, as bad as everything has been in the last year or two, I think though that we are in a place, really a great place, because we have an opportunity to change the trajectory that we're on. And I think, the education, not just the education, learning it, because I walk around, there's a lot of people walk around with a lot of knowledge, right? But not applying any of it. But applied knowledge, that financial literacy is going to be the key to changing all of that. So with the education and the financial literacy part, I think we will change that in the next decade. I think, I tell people, I said, be hopeful. We're in our best times right now.
Yeah. And when we talk about that statistic and those numbers, my first kind of thought process is like, why? But
Right.
but I oftentimes think, especially in our culture,
Mm-hmm.
that we oftentimes live beyond our means. And we don't have a true understanding that life wants are going to be endless, but
Yeah.
our needs are measurable. And by that, I mean, you're going to always want something. There's always going to be something that you desire. But if you take the opportunity to focus on your needs and addressing your needs, the essential needs, and living beyond your wants, for a small period of time, you would surpass any want or the desire that you may even have. Um,
Yes.
and I remember just recently I was listening to a podcast, of, I want to say her name was like King Ashley or something like that. And she
Mhm.
was saying how, from her experience, she took a couple of years just to live beneath her wants. Like she
Mhm.
had set in stone what she was going to spend, how she was going to spend, and addressed completely her needs, and limited her wants for a couple of years. And now she's put herself in a position where whatever she wants or however she wants, she can go after that, because she took the opportunity to not live beyond her means, but live within her needs and address those things. And if we could take the opportunity to not be so focused on our wants, but focus on our needs, I think we can get past and truly change that number. I think we've learned as a culture how to live on making it on the fragments. I think we now know, as a result of the pandemic, that we are not irreplaceable, meaning that by any means everyone can be replaced by a computer system, or everyone can be replaced by, by a machine, honestly. And with those things that we now know, I think we should use those things as motivation to want to build generational wealth, to want to seek generational wealth. I will say what I did find in a lot of people is pretty much everybody on my kind of timeline during this pandemic has found some sort of niche, some sort of, go getting attitude to be able to make, even if it was a small income, be able to make some extra income outside of their own, trade 9 to 5.
Yes.
Um, but you will also see that when those stimulus checks hit, people were everywhere. And I'm like, it wasn't. And my
Oh
husband and
my
I had this
God.
conversation. We had this conversation because he's one that is very strategic. So
Uh-huh.
anytime there's strategy in something, he immediately picks up on it. And he was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, it's no surprise that they released the stimulus checks right before spring break, because by releasing that money, they knew that people had been in the house for so long, they were going to want to do something.
that's
And
right.
with that stimulus, they tended to their wants, not so much their needs."
Absolutely, Tiff. I tell people all the time, is that, especially in our community, it's not that we don't have money. When you look at our incomes, probably over the last 15, 20 years, our income, when you talk about just our pure income,
Mhm.
has surpassed all other groups.
Wow.
And people don't know that. African Americans, our income has jumped, when it comes to, when you look at all the other groups, it is that lack of education and the literacy part that has not risen to where we want it to be.
Right.
Okay. But I tell people we don't have a money problem. you
And
know,
the problem.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny, you talk about that with the stimulus check, and not to veer off too long, man, but I needed to go to the Galleria, and I rarely ever go to the Galleria Mall, just ever. But there was a particular shirt I needed for an event, and that I was doing. I was like, okay, I got to go to this store, right?
Right.
And I need to go to a big store. And when I walked in there, I was like, what is going on? Because I hadn't been there like probably in a year.
Mhm.
And I mean, hey, and I don't knock people. I don't try to shame people about their
Right.
choices at all. Your choice is your choice. But the Gucci line was round the door. The Prada, the what else is in the Louis Vuitton. I saw people walk around with Louis Vuitton bags. I'm like, and me, I just left Marshalls because I wanted to make sure, I could buy a
Right.
shirt, looking for a shirt for about like $12,
Right.
because that's just me. Now I tell people, I say, you ain't gotta live like me. You do you, right?
Right.
But but just going back to that, saying like, hey, we ain't got a money problem. We just got, a spending problem, like you say, and understanding what our wants are and our needs and the difference, and
Right.
basically, understanding, having that education to
Right.
do what we need to do. But yeah, so that was, yeah, your husband, that was great, that he observed that, right? So it's definitely a strategy to it all.
And when I say, to kind of get back to the whole being able to foster and capitalize on what we have,
Mhm.
when I think about, how people use their stimulus check, in their own spending in their own right, I
Mhm.
wonder how much of that they put toward liquid assets versus, investments.
Mhm.
And for me, liquid assets are things are is a asset that you can put your hands on.
Mhm.
That's your
Mhm.
savings. That's some money that if you need to go to the bank and pull it out, or you need to cash something
Mhm.
in, you can have it right away, and it's not a
Mhm.
gap or a lapse in doing that. Or even in investing, I wonder how much people put toward that, and from their stimulus check. And I can't vouch for how other people spend their money, as
Oh,
well.
absolutely.
But I
Absolutely.
think it's important that when we have that surplus, that we really focus on obtaining what would be long-term wealth, tangible wealth. And
Mhm.
my question for you is, what exactly and how exactly can we establish long-term tangible wealth? Where do we locate it? How do we secure those type of things?
Yeah. So when you talk about tangible, like you know exactly what you said, tangible wealth are things like real estate, right? Like precious metals, things like that. Actually, cash, investments, and businesses. So basically, these are things, tangible wealth, right? These are things that we actually can transfer to people, right? And how do you locate it and secure it? I think that locating it. I mean, there's nothing that you can't find out these days, right? If you ask enough questions, of
Right.
course. But I think that to locate it, hey, if there's real estate that you want to be involved in, which I think is a great thing, right? Make sure that you understand, the ins and out of real estate. So that means what? You probably need to get with a professional, somebody that understand these things. If it's investments, make sure you get with a licensed financial coach that can help you with those things. And that's what a lot of times people don't seek out, right? And one of the things, like even me, I'm a licensed financial coach, but guess what? I have coaches as well,
Mhm.
even though I'm a licensed financial coach. And sometimes we skip on those things because we're like, oh, I can figure that out for myself. Well, I tell people, I said, well, if you can figure it out for yourself, you probably would be much further ahead. But of course, you not there. So that
Right.
probably means you need a coach, right? And I tell there's 3 reasons why people primarily fail, of acquiring, wealth and things like that is because number one, they don't have a coach. Number two, they don't have the financial education. Okay. And number three, you don't have a game plan. And so when you don't have those things in place, it's very hard to, access those things, right? So, but I think, like I say, that's what we talk about long-term tangible wealth are things, like I say, that you can transfer to other people and securing them and even securing it, locating and securing it. I think, you need to make sure that you're working with professionals. There's a lot of people out there and I tell people when you're, looking for like, real estate agents, life coaches, financial coach, I think is that you need to find people that, work well with your personality. I'm a firm believer of that, because just because I'm a licensed financial coach, I may not work well with your personality. That's okay, but find somebody who does, right? Somebody that you can trust, and somebody that you feel like you can follow. But I think that's what we have to do. But like I say, the thing that we have to start thinking about though is generational,
Yeah.
right? And transferring, because a lot of times people just think money, if I got money, I got money, I got money. But it's about what can I transfer to the next generation,
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good.
you
So
know?
let me reintroduce ourselves and then I'll ask the next question as we transition to the topic.
Okay.
So, for those of you that are just joining us, I am Tiffany. I am social worker by trade, community activist at heart, and we are talking live with Nikki Williams, who is a licensed financial coach. And to bring you guys up to speed, we have been talking about financial literacy versus financial education and understanding that truly it's about being able to both understand and apply a skill set in order to truly thrive in your finances, and also being able to understand it's good to have what you would consider liquid assets. So being able to have a savings account, being able to have funds and monetary means that you can put your hands on, but also being able to have investments and having things, as Nikki was just saying, that you can transfer. Wealth is all about generational, meaning something that you can pass down, something that you can leave on to your loved one, to your family. But in order to do that, you have to have somewhere to start. You have to be able to seek help. You have to be able to have someone to guide you through those things, preferably someone that's licensed, but definitely having someone to be a coach or be a mentor with those measures. So for me, Nikki, I live my life in kind of quarters. um, and living my life in quarters, I set my goals the same. um,
Hmm.
and my husband and I, we sit down and we talk financial goals.
Hmm.
And for those of us that are kind of just starting out with understanding truly what wealth is, what would you say are some small, manageable goals that you would recommend for someone that wants to develop wealth?
Yeah, so I think, from some of the small things that you can do, I tell some of my clients, I said, let's save your first $1,000,
Hmm.
right? And save up $1,000, right? That's pretty small, but attainable. And but here's what that you have to be able to do, right? no matter how much amount that you invest each month, but it's the consistency that you have.
It's true.
A little bit consistently over a long period of time, you would be surprised at how much money, I talk to a lot of people, and I really, truly, my market is typically people between the ages of about 25 to 65, but I'm really focused on that group in that 25 to about 35 years of age, because I told some of my, younger clients, just think at 25, you invest in $200 a month, just say at about a 9% interest. Do you realize that in the next 30 years, by 30 to 40 years, by the time you retire, like most typical people do, right? And by age 65, that you can have well over $1 million.
Wow.
Well over $1 million. Because there's a myth out there that people think that I gotta have a whole bunch of money to start investing.
That's not true.
And that's not true. And I think that's where a lot of people have gotten bogged down, because they're like, man, I only have like $300 or $400, left or extra, just to play with. Like, surely I can't be a wealth with that. But you can.
Wow.
But you just got to understand, like I say, you got to have somebody, which you talk about, a licensed coach, somebody who can direct you and show you how to invest that. So, that's the thing that, we have to, continue. I tell people in my industry, like my agents, we have to, it's truly a crusade. And we got to be able to reach and teach people that you don't have to have $500,000 a month. If you got it, great, but you can start out as little as $100, $200 a month, and start to truly build wealth. And so that's what I would suggest to people. First of all, identify how much money you're bringing in, where your money is going. That's called somewhat a budget, right? We don't like to use that word, but it's a budget, right? And I tell people it's not necessarily a budget. Let's just find out where the money's going. Okay.
Okay. That's a good way to put it.
That's how I kind of tell, saying we're not going to talk about budget, but let's just find out where the money is. Right. Okay. and then from there, we can come up with a manageable plan. And I think when we simplify things that way, sometimes I ask my clients, like, how much money can you set aside every 2 weeks? Because most people get paid on the 15th and the 30th, right? And people be like, oh, I can set $50 away every 2 weeks. I said, great. So let's see, this is what we're going to do every 2 weeks. And we start and we build. So the first thing is, let's build that first $1,000.
Yeah.
And once people see that they can do this, what happens? Their belief gets stronger.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
And after that first 100 a month, then they like, oh, I think I can put away another 100.
Yeah.
Now I'm putting away $200 a month.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's just really a mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know people like, no, it's money. I said, no, a lot of it is about the mindset.
Right. And you mentioned at 9%. So what type of account would people kind of invest in at 9%?
At 9%, there's accounts like what we call mutual funds. And I tell people, I said, when you talk about mutual funds, because a lot of people call me about the stock market because people have been at home and they're researching a lot of things. And I get that call all the time. I said, no, those things are great. If you want to do that, hey, have it. But when you talk about things like mutual funds, you're talking about, instead of having your money, say, hey, I'm gonna put all my money in Amazon. I hope Amazon works out well. But if Amazon doesn't work out well, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of, I use the elevator analogy, Tiff, right? When we're talking about mutual funds. I said, would you want to be on an elevator that has one cord, or would you want to be on an elevator that has 100 cords?
Yep.
Right. And so people think like, well, because if that elevator with one cord breaks, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
But if we're on the elevator with 100 cords and one cord breaks, we're gonna be okay. Right? We got 99 left, right?
Right.
So those are, some of the different things, programs that we could put people into, and the great things about those, type of funds, they're professionally managed. So you ain't got to run around and sit around like, oh, should I don't get out of this and
Yeah.
get out of that? Because hey, the average working person don't have time to do that. Okay. Shifting around money all day, because that's not your profession. I tell people, I said, you're not a professionally money manager.
Yeah.
So stop trying to do that, because
Right.
you probably, and sometimes like, oh, but my uncle, he was able to buy him a house. I say he kind of got lucky. And I said that does happen. I
Right.
said like every couple of weeks somebody hit the lotto.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's how you look at that. So and so we we try to put people in investments and diversify their investments.
Okay.
So yeah.
And starting out with the mutual funds for $100 a month. I need to get on that. I did
Yeah,
get on that.
something as simple as that.
Now, I do know when we talk about financial literacy and financial education, the term financial freedom always kind of spools its way into that. And I always have the question, is there truly such thing as financial freedom? Because for me, financial freedom is something that I don't necessarily see reality, real in reality and truly possible, because I believe in order to always have good credit, you have to have a creditor, and that was something that my father taught me. But for me, I value more so financial security over financial freedom. So I want to know, is there truly, candidly, in your own way, is there such thing as financial freedom? And what would you say are the differences between financial freedom and financial security?
Absolutely. Financial freedom. There is a thing as financial freedom,
Okay.
right? So financial freedom to me is basically like living life pretty much on your own terms.
Okay.
Okay. So when you get free of something. And when I'm talking to clients is, when financial freedom, or sometimes we interchange them with financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you'll hear that financial freedom, financial independence. It's basically, having enough money coming in that, hey, can take care of your monthly expenses without you necessarily having to work,
Okay.
right? To create, that money to take care of that. That's what financial independence, financial freedom is. Financial security is focused is more emotional, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and feelings, right? It's a great feeling to wake up and know that, hey, my mortgage is paid, my insurance is paid, cars are paid, we can buy, food to provide on the table, the kids schooling are paid for. So that's the security, and that's what most people really are seeking, is that security, right? Because there's nothing worse than a person that don't have that sense of security,
Right.
because it starts to really impact and affect your life in ways that you can't even imagine.
Right.
But so there's truly a difference, and they're truly attainable. But once again, it goes back to that education, planning, right, and making sure that we're applying that knowledge
Right.
that we learn, from the education side of it. But freedom and financial freedom, independence is truly something that that each and every one of us can attain. And I tell people that I think it's your God-given right to have.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, living in this country, some people think it's only set aside for a few people, but it's I think it's for everyone, right? And money. When we talk about money, money spends the same, no matter if you're making 40,000 or 100,000.
Yeah.
People think that there's a difference, but it's really not. I said the person that's making 50,000 or 100,000, 50,000. Hey, the person making 100,000 just probably have some bigger toys. But at the
Mhm.
end of the day, money spends the same.
That's
That
good.
so that person that makes 100,000, 200,000 may not be no more financially free than the person that's making 50,000.
Wow. That's good. That's good. That's
See what
good.
I'm saying? And
I
and,
love
and we, yeah, and in my profession, I see that all the time. And I tell people, I say probably the most vulnerable group is that group, that middle income, what we call middle class family. That family that's earning that $80,000 to $200,000 as a household. And I think that's probably the most vulnerable group that's out there.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice way to look at it. I'm very much so a touchy feely person, so that may be
Mhm.
why I draw closer to the financial security.
Yes.
But being able to have financial independence is definitely a goal I think everyone across the board has. For me, I definitely equate financial freedom to being able to have, my own and have my own power and kind of ownership
Hmm.
of my own wealth. And I'll never forget when I watched the Regina King's One Night in Miami, um,
Hmm.
how Sam Cooke was talking, and he said it all out of conviction, but it was definitely a reality for me. But he was talking how so often people want a piece of the pie,
Yes.
but in wanting a piece of the pie, that's thinking on a lower level. That's
Mhm.
thinking on this middle class level. But when you want the whole damn recipe, like he said, you are seeking more and being able to have that side financial security where you can have your money to make money for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
yes.
and before I knew it, when he said that line, I had to rewind it a couple of times because it just kept resonating with me. And I think as a culture, if we got to the point where we understood what you just said, all money spends the same.
It does.
It doesn't matter what my income may be, is how I'm managing it is what matters. Then I think we will all grow to be at a better place, and be able to have more out of life. Financial security is big for me. It's all about, breaking generational curses in
Mhm.
in my household, in my life, and in my family. So for me, I want to be able to replace what I didn't have with what I can have, so that I can give, and how, like you said, transfer my children something. I don't want to die and be a question mark. I want to be a statement.
Oh, wow.
So that, for me, I'm rooting for wealth across the board, but I'm rooting for financial security for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely, Tiff. You said something so amazing. Said you don't want to be a question mark, you want to be a statement. I tell people, I said, when you walk into people's homes where, they've created wealth, whatever, one thing that you notice is there's a picture always over the mantle of an individual.
Is it Jesus?
Now, it ain't Jesus, but
Is it
there's
Saint
a
J?
no, it's a picture of somebody from their family.
Okay.
And I'm talking about sometimes when we walk into other people's homes, right? And there's this picture, and I always tell people, I say, you want your picture over the mantle.
I want my picture over the mantle.
You want your picture over the mantle. So when the children
Hmm.
talk about Grandma Tiffany
Yep.
and what she did,
Right.
there's a reason why that picture is there,
Right. Right. Right.
because they set the family up.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
I
that's what you want. And that's so powerful. You said, I don't want to be a question mark, I want to be a statement.
Yes,
I'm
I
telling
love
you,
that.
you want to be a statement, right? I love that, Tim.
I'm gonna go to Walgreens and get my picture printed out now,
I
so
get it framed, right?
and I can transfer it to my children so they have it.
When they walk in, right?
Yes,
Because the reason why, hey, they walk into a 10,000 square foot home is because of the picture, the person is
yes.
sitting
I
over
love
the
that.
counter.
I love that.
And and somebody, one of my mentors explained that to me. He said, you ever walk in somebody's house that's extremely wealthy? You've been to, I said, yeah, I've been to some home. You ever notice a picture that's hanging up over
Hmm.
the mantle? I was like, oh, I have seen that. Think about that.
Yes, I like that. Now I'm gonna make sure that I add that to my goals. I told y'all Nikki was going to say something that you knew that you was gonna have to write down. Like if you say me kind of veering off, it was because I was writing down some things. But
That's
that's something
okay.
that I'm going to have to write down. I want to be the picture over the mantle.
Let me tell you something, Tiff, but you said something. Hey, I'm gonna write this down. I don't want to be a question mark. I want to be a
Yes,
statement.
yes, yes.
I love that, man. That's so awesome. I mean, I absolutely love it.
So as we kind of transition and kind of wrap up this conversation, I want to be clear that we kind of discuss wealth across all continuums. And I
Mhm.
understand that a lot of times wealth is not always monetary.
Mhm.
It's definitely those things that you cannot buy with the power of a dollar. It is those things that are intangible, but have so much more value. And for me, those are things like my peace of mind, my strength, grace and mercy. And I want to kind of gauge your insight on how you feel those intangible, non-monetary things plays into, developing and establishing a holistic wealth.
Yeah, so we always, I always say this, and it's something that people use all the time. Your health is wealth, right? That truly is, a true statement. But I think it plays a big part in your overall well-being when it comes to your wealth, because what keeps people up at night, right,
Mhm.
is thinking about money.
Yeah.
A lot of stressors that people are faced with
Mhm.
is a relation to the money problems that they're having, right? Marital problems. I tell people the number one reason why people divorce is not infidelity; it's really financial. Now it may show up in other areas, in other ways, but if you had to trace it back, it comes to it's about money,
Mhm.
because it's that thing, because we understand, in this world, you need money.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I tell people, when people talk about, oh, money's not everything, I'd be like, when I run across people like that, Tiff, I kind of like, let me back away. I tell people, I said, like they say, you know, it's right up there with air.
Mhm.
you know, you
Needed to
need
survive.
air to survive. I mean, it's the reality. But you know, I think it's all about the way we see things and we perceive things.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you talk about holistic, being wealthy in our minds and our bodies and our spirits, just I think that those things are, definitely important, but no amount of money will make you whole in those areas, because we know people that have tons of money, uh unfortunately, God bless them, but commit suicide,
Mhm.
but got all the money in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think, when we're, putting together what we call a life plan,
Mhm.
we got to make sure that we are spiritually fit,
Yeah.
that our relationship with whoever you worship, is intact. You got to make sure that you're taking care of your health. I meet so many people, that want to create wealth, like for their families, but what, they're sick. They
Mhm.
can't, go out and, start businesses because you're not feeling good, right? Or you can't get proper life insurance because you're sick and nobody will insure you.
Mhm.
So those things, definitely are super important. So, and when you talk about grace and mercy, I use this all the time. You gotta, have some grace with your own self.
Yeah.
You
True.
you know you gotta have grace. I tell people, I said, God gives us grace and mercy every day we wake up,
Yeah.
every day. And if he, get to, we have to also have that same grace and mercy with ourselves, even when it comes to our finances.
Mhm.
Okay. We have to, when we go to the altar call, when we first accept, Jesus, and we get in what saved, first thing is we admit what I am a sinner. Okay. But and we have to admit and understand what we are, right? And then, after that, we have to, take steps to make sure that we're on the right road, to kind of what we say, redeem ourselves.
Okay.
But on that road, there's gonna be some bumps.
Yeah.
I tell people, because this is something new. When you're a new Christian, everything that you used to do don't fall off and be automatically.
Yeah.
Heck, I've been a Christian for probably 40 years, and I still make
Yeah.
mistakes. We all do, right?
Yeah.
So, but be patient with yourself.
Mhm.
I tell people, be patient. and understand that it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process, right? And I think the more that we can understand that it's a process,
Mhm.
and we can, give ourselves that grace and mercy, the better off we'll be in every area of our lives, from finances to spiritual to health to, no matter what it is. And so that's just my take on it when it comes to the intangibles, getting that education, getting with those, like those professionals in what you're seeking for, and just like I say, just take it one day at a time. You know, that's all you can do. Just take it one day at a time.
Right, that's good. That was a great wrap up to today's show and really kind of encompassing all that we've discussed. And I will share my testament, and it's kind of going back to what we just discussed in understanding that in order for you to truly establish wealth, it all is a part of a process and being able to bet on yourself, but also extend grace to yourself as well. Like I said, I'm rooting for wealth for everyone. And that is to ensure that we all leave this world with a legacy that, supersedes whatever monetary that we have. So for me, my wealth is so far beyond profit. It really is driven by my passion, and because it's driven by my passion, I truly believe, like you said, my picture will be on the mantle, and I'm
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you so much for taking time out and for joining us, for engaging in this dialogue. It is always such a good time with you, and I appreciate you just for being a part and being so candid with me.
Yes, absolutely, Tiffany. As I wrap up, you talk about a testament, right? I tell people, that, every day that God gives you, right, you must be intentional.
Hmm.
You must be intentional.
It's true.
But at the same time, practice that patience with
Yeah.
yourself. And that's how, I live my life every day. Let's be intentional.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have patience. So that's my testament, and that's what I'll leave with the audience.
All right. All right. Well, I hope that you will join us again in the future. I think this has been your third talk time that you with
It
us.
is. It
So
is.
that says something about you and definitely something about us. My mom always said you only invite people back that you want to be a part. So,
Yes,
I
absolutely.
appreciate, you being a part and for taking the time out of your Sunday afternoon. And audience, I appreciate you guys for being a part as well, for participating in the dialogue. I wasn't able to kind of teeter-totter between Facebook today, but I will go back and respond to the questions if any have come up. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements. We have officially gone to print with our Tiff Talks Women in Power magazine, and we will have live prints available within the next week or so. So we will have on our Facebook and our IG platform how you can go about purchasing those prints if you want them. We will be continuing this blooming season in regards to financial literacy on week after next. On April the 25th, we will have another financial guru that will we be talking about credit worth finances in regards to your FICO score. So that is a big thing that I've heard a lot about. My husband will likely be sitting in on this conversation because that's definitely something that he's interested in. So make sure that you set your notifications to be a part of bi-weekly Sunday, which will the next show will actually be on April the 25th for that talk time. Coming this Tuesday, we're going to be starting something new with our IG platform, and that is to really kind of reconnect with you guys and be more available. We're going to be actually doing what's called a Tiff Talks Tuesday, where we will have 7 minutes that we're going to allocate to open discussion, to recap the show, to just talk all things Tiff Talks, and that is going to be live on IG. So join me on Tuesday for Tiff Talks Tuesday at 7 p.m. And until then, thank you guys for being a part. I appreciate you sharing your time and your energy. And thank you once again, Nikki, for being a part. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. I would have not missed it for anything.
All
All
right,
righty.
guys, have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.